part 3 of our Excel worksheets. Then we're going to continue with our functions. The next function we're going to look up is our VLOOKUP. Now, VLOOKUP is used when we have a situation like here with our shipping charge. We have a whole bunch of different values that we have to be able to calculate. And so we can use the VLOOKUP function. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in the formula section, and we're going to go into the lookup and reference section. And at the very bottom is the VLOOKUP. Now, we click on that in the VLOOKUP value. We want it to look up the value of the price, which is over here in E5. So we're going to click E5 there. Now, we don't want that to be absolute because E5 is going to change as we go to the different prices, so that's going to stay the same. In the table arrays section, we want that to take into all the amounts that are considered here. So in other words, over in our table with our shipping charges, we want the prices from L6 through M13. So we're just going to highlight all of that, L6 through M13. Now we want those to be absolute because it's always going to reference those values. And so we want it to always reference them. Now the column index number, this is where it's going to draw its value from. It's not in the first column, it's the second column that's the rate. So we're going to put 2 for column 2. And we click OK, and our value is 50. Now since we've already made this the absolute part, we can now fill handle this down, and this will give us our shipping charge for each of these. We can verify that this is true. Let's take the one we did originally, 50. It was $750. For $750, the rate would be $50. So we did that right. For $315, that's in between $250 and $349, so that would be a $30 surcharge, or shipping charge, sorry. So here's our $30 shipping charge. So we know we did this correctly, okay? Next, we want to do our payment function. If we go to the vehicle purchase form, we're going to calculate our monthly payments to decide on which of these vehicles we want to buy. So Excel has this option for us under the financial section. We go down to payment, PMT, and in this first part, it wants the rate. Our rate here is 4.9 in cell B10. So we select B10, and then that is going to happen 12 times a year. So we're going to divide that by our number of periods, which is B12. Now, both of those need to become absolute, so I'm going to click in between them and hit F4 and F4. Now, the N per, or number of periods, is going to be for 5 years. So we're going to select B11. Now, B11, that's the number of years, but it happens 12 times a year. So we need to multiply this times our number of periods, which is 12. We'll make both of them absolute by hitting F4 in between them. And then the PV is our purchase value. That is what we bought it for. So for this one, it's going to be B4. Now we don't want that to be absolute because that's going to change with each vehicle. Everything else will remain the same, so those need to be absolute. So we're done with that now. That's all we needed to look up. We're going to click OK. And now you'll notice that this is in red with parentheses. Payments are negatives, and anytime you see red in parentheses, that means Excel has identified it as a negative value. Now we don't really want to see it as that, so we're going to double click on it, and in front of PMT we'll click, and we'll put a hyphen or a negative in front of that and hit enter. And that takes care of the negative value. So we're going to fill handle this down, and now these are the monthly payments for each of these vehicles. Now, deciding whether or not to purchase it, we can use a logic function called the if function. So I'm going to click right here in D4. I'm going to come up to the logic, and I'm going to select if. Now, for my logic test, I want to identify that if C4 is less than or equal to. So I'm going to do the less than symbol and then put equal. So that means less than or equal to our threshold. Our threshold is this $325 down here in B13. So I'm selecting B13. B13 is going to be absolute because we're always referencing the threshold. So F4 there. Next, if it's true, in parentheses, we're going to put yes. That means yes, we want to buy it. If false, in parentheses, we're going to put no, because that means we do not want to buy it. We click OK, and now we see that this is a no-go. We're not purchasing this first one. When we fill handle this down, it now will say no to the second one, but not to the third one. Now watch if I change this value to, let's say, 400. Now we have two of the vehicles that fit within that threshold. We made one change somewhere because we made it absolute. It changed both of those. Okay. Okay, so we want to make sure that we evaluate or we troubleshoot our functions, right, to make sure everything is legit. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete everything in B12. So right here is B12. We're just going to hit delete. And you notice here that it gives us a bunch of errors. And there's green arrows up here. If I click on those green arrows, it gives me this symbol right here, meaning that there's a problem. And when I click on this, it says divide zero error, meaning you're dividing by zero for some reason. Okay? So we know that that's an error that we have to that's going on here. And we know that's true because we deleted the 12, which was dividing one of those. Now, in the formulas function, auditing group over here, we can trace the precedence. So let's go to this one. We'll trace the precedence, meaning the ones that came before. Everything that is going to the solution in C4 has an arrow going from it to that cell. You can notice here that there's nothing in the cell, and that's how we could easily identify that something was missing. So that was trace precedence. We can remove arrows. What if we did it backward? What if we clicked on this and we wanted to know what's dependent on that? So we can click on trace dependence, and now we can see that that's affecting the answer for these three. If I click it again, we can see that that's also now affecting the answer for those three. And so that's another way for us to start auditing our function. Now let's remove the arrows and let's do error checking. Okay, so we're going to select C4 and we'll click in error checking and help on this error. And it will take us somewhere online to help us with the error. Now I'm going to get rid of that. We're going to go back to the worksheet. And we could, let's do this again now. Let's check for error, and this time let's show the calculation. As we show the calculation and we evaluate, you can see right here where it was divide by 0, it shows us right there as the error. It's dividing by 0 right there in that part of my formula. Okay? So that's another place where we can find our errors. Now, we don't want these errors, so we're going to retype in 12 there into B12 and then move on. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the FY15 online sales worksheet, and we're going to select columns E5 through E19. So here, we're in the on the home tab in the numbers group. So we're going to go to the home tab in the numbers group. We want to format this cell. So up here, what we have is in the number format section, we know that this is in general format. If I click down, this gives me a bunch of different formats that we could place these. For example, if I select currency, it will now place them with dollar signs and with zeros at the end, right? So there's currency. That's just another way of looking at it. Let's just choose accounting here. So we'll go in, we'll choose accounting, and that changed it in only the fact that it took the dollar signs and moved them to the left side of our box. We're going to now apply that here too with C22 through C26. So we're going to highlight those, and we're going to let me get to that correctly. Okay, we're going to highlight that, and what we want to do here is we're going to change that to accountancy as well, or accounting. All right. I can see here my number of size of oversized disappeared, so let me fix that really fast. With these, with this part of our column highlighted, C22 through C26, we put it in the accountant format, but we have all these zeros at the end that we don't want. So what we're going to do is come up here again on the home tab, and right here is the decrease decimals. So we're going to decrease it by 2 and not have any decimals at all. Now, those ones we took away the decimals. What we want to do is over here in L15, this is a percentage. So we're going to go up to the number section right here where the percent thing is, and this is the percent styles. We're going to click on it, and it says it's 9%. Now 9% wasn't exactly accurate to what that actual value was. So we want to actually increase the decimals. That's this one right here. Increase the decimals, and we're going to increase it twice. 9.25 more accurately displays the percentage there. Okay. So next we're going to select E6 through E19, and the comma style button is right here. This is comma style, and what it does is it gets rid of the dollar signs. And so now through C28. The reason is because you can see how 15 and 6 are further back than these numbers are. And we just want to kind of bring them into the same realm as these. So if we do the common, we can we'll be able to move the decimals over or move the space over just to line up with these ones. And we don't want the zeros though because these are dealing with number of items sold, so we're going to decrease the decimal twice. And so now our numbers are all aligned over here. Because of the length of this video, I'm also going to have to do a part B for this video. So this is part A, and we'll do part B.